Doctors and nurses of Reddit who had delivered babies to mothers who clearly cheated on their husbands. What was that like? I was assisting at a cesarean when I was a junior doctor. The woman's dark-skinned partner had been in prison 9 months or so. I took the baby immediately upon delivery and announced cheerily, "It's a boy." Her first words were, "Is it black?" Luckily the baby was a mocha color that could have gone either way, and I told her in a mildly confused manner, "It could be." So a friend of mine, he is unfortunately dead, had cancer and he was dating a girl for about 2 years. He then discovered he had cancer and that he would live at best 1 more year. His girlfriend announced to him a week later that she was pregnant. They were both white. He kept on saying that life is a joke. He was happy because he would have a baby now, but sad because he would die in a year. Anyway, 9 months later the baby was born, and it was black. He then disappeared for weeks, and we learned that he had died a month later. Felt so ducking sorry. Had 2 women give birth a few days apart on my floor. Turns out they actually had the same baby daddy. The father of the 2 newborns got both patients pregnant around the same time. It was an interesting day for the social worker. In high school my gym teacher was married to the biology teacher, who was also really good friends with my math teacher. Always saw them chatting and walking together. Well, the BO teacher got pregnant, and when she brought the baby in there was an unignorable resemblance to the math teacher. Her husband ended up driving to the nearest hospital and shooting himself dead in the parking lot. It was a big scandal at our relatively small private school. One of a few actually. I know a guy who is fully white. His parents are both white and his younger sister is black. I always assumed she was adopted, and one day, when I mentioned it, he looked at me weirdly and was like, "No dude, that's my full-blood sister." Obviously I didn't believe it, and apparently neither did his dad at the birth. But they got the paternity test, and she was his daughter. Likelihood is they've got some black ancestors far enough back to be forgotten about. I also know a dude who has a white Scottish mum and a black Jamaican dad. Dude came out pale white with a ginger afro. Genetics were not on his side. Kind of unrelated, but this lady at my church is a white female married to a white male. They have 1 younger kid who is the spitting image of his dad and obviously white. Then, they have an older kid that is quite visibly mixed. The kid has dark brown skin and curly African American hair and nonetheless looks nothing like the dad. So this lady claims that when she gave birth the hospital gave her baby a shot that turned him black. Therefore, we refer to this kid as Black Shot. Feel bad for the kid, but he truly believes the story and is in like 7th grade. Newborn had chlamydia. Got it from the mom. Obviously. So the mom admits she was cheating on the dad. Because there's no other way to explain that one. Except the dad was cheating too. With the other guy's girlfriend. And all 4 of them had chlamydia. With no idea who had it first. They also had no idea who the actual dad was. That was a rodeo. Edit. Well, that's what I get for editing before bed. Let's be honest. Everything we know about chlamydia, we learned from teen romcoms. No idea what the doctors thought. But I had a phone call from the wife asking for my blood type while they were in the hospital the next day. And I ducked home. I'm a. The wife is O. Bob is A. I've done enough science to know where that's going. Have done DNA testing. I'm 100% the dad. Still not sure how to get more interesting science info about the myriad markers that apparently exist. My so and I just had our first in January. He has brown hair and I'm blonde. When she arrived, the nurse exclaimed, "Wow, look at that red hair." We know it's a recessive gene, but it wasn't the very first thing we expected to hear. We looked at each other for a moment and I said, in my drugged and exhausted post-labor stupor, "I swear she's yours." Little different twist, I'm Ukrainian. My great-grandfather was Crimean Tatar, who are mixed Turkic and Mongolian. My wife is Ukrainian and Italian. My first boy was blonde. My second was dark-haired, dark-skinned, and has the classic almond-shaped Asiatic eyes. Mongolian spot. Despite the fact that we know my family history, we ordered a test to make sure there was no separation at birth stuff. C-section. Yep. That's our boy. You would never know looking at us that that boy is genetically related to us. And we love him to pieces. Edit. Autocorrect. Super awkward for everyone involved. The husband was only in the room for a bit then left, and didn't see him again. The fob. Father of baby. Showed up after the baby was born. I've also had where they didn't know whose baby it was, so both guys were present to see whose they thought it was. My brother married a half Korean, half white woman who had 3 girls to the same Mexican guy. The first girl looks Latina. The second girl looks Pacific Islander. The third girl has platinum blonde hair and icy blue eyes. They look nothing alike. And yet if you look at their lineage it all makes sense. I don't know if this ever caused any issues between her and her ex. But I could understand if an eyebrow was raised in the third one. Now she has a 4th girl with my brother, and she looks nothing like the other 3. Just standard brown hair, brown eyed white girl. I know this ain't super relevant to the question but it always entertains me. From my friend, who was a delivery nurse for years. The mother takes the doctor aside and makes him promise to let her know the color of the baby the instant he knows the baby is born, and the doctor announces to mom, "Congratulations on your beautiful, healthy white baby." The father just walked right out the room and they never found anything more out about it. Not a delivery nurse, but I have to share. My friend Sarah was pregnant and her boyfriend flaked out and was not in the picture. So, her other friend Eric and I took it upon ourselves to be there for her during the pregnancy. When she was having an ultrasound, we were both there in the room with her. As the tech is showing us the baby's face, we were saying things like, "Dude, that's totally your nose. Look, that can't be my chin." etc. Sarah was laughing, and the bewildered tech was looking at the 3 of us, probably making comparisons herself. I ended up working with that tech years later. One day she said, "So, out of curiosity, who was the father? Lol." Not a doctor, but my best friend's brother-in-law has 2 black parents and came out completely white. DNA test confirmed they were both his parents. It just be like that sometimes. Edit. I'm only guessing they tested the mother as well to rule out any possibility of an accidental swap at the hospital. Mayo, you're savage. I'm a nurse. I have seen quite a few situations where dad turns out not to be dad, but never because of the color of the newborn. I have, however, seen an absolute duck ton of kids who are born and don't look like the same ethnicity as their parents for days or sometimes a couple of weeks. Babies often look darker when they are born. Just saying. Some of these anecdotal stories might not necessarily be true. I had a female patient come in with abdominal pain. Pregnancy test was positive. She was with her husband who, evidently, had a vasectomy about a year prior. I slowly backed out of the room after that one. Edit. I know it's possible. Just improbable. Obligatory, not a doctor/nurse. But both of my parents had blonde hair. When I was born, my hair was strawberry blonde. My paternal grandparents lost their crap and accused my mom of cheating because red tinted hair didn't run in their family. However, it ran in my mom's family with a red head popping up every now and then. My paternal grandparents didn't know that. They just really hated my mom, so looked for excuses to drag her down. It wasn't until I stopped looking like a potato, as most newborns do, and started looking like a person, when my dad's family features came through enough to make them apologize to my mom. Not a cheating story, but my sister's friend was born fair-skinned with red hair and green hazel eye colored. Both parents are dark-skinned with black hair and brown eyes. When her mom gave birth, everyone in the room went silent. However, the father knew that his wife didn't cheat. Turned out, his wife's great-great-grandmother had red hair and fair skin. However, hospital protocol made both parents get a DNA test, and everything was okay. When my baby was born, people asked me if her father was Polynesian. Nope. He's a skinny white man. There was no doubt he was the father. She was born with thick black hair. She was a big baby, 4 kilograms, and had jaundice, which made her look very tan. The hair fell out. The jaundice went away. She thinned out, and I now have a strawberry blonde haired 2-year-old that looks exactly like her papa. But man, if I hadn't known he was the only man I'd slept with, I would have some serious doubts. Not a doctor or nurse, but an undergrad I had a buddy, Caucasian, who'd been dating the same girl, also Caucasian, for a while. She gets knocked up. He proposes. Fast forward a few months and both families are eagerly waiting at the hospital to meet the baby. The baby comes out black. Everyone is in shock. Girl is frantically trying to convince everyone that there's been a misunderstanding. My buddy called off the engagement immediately, returned the ring, and never looked back. It's sometimes best not to leap to conclusions too quickly. When I was born my skin was a little blue. Thankfully my dad didn't get angry and accuse my mum of ducking a smurf. Wasn't there. But my cousin found out real quick when his girlfriend's kid was black and neither he nor the girlfriend were. The funny thing is, he's the one taking care of him, as his girlfriend was an even bigger piece of work than he was, and keeps showing time and time again that she's not fit to care for a child. Obligatory, not a nurse/doctor, but I remember reading while I was pregnant that black babies can be born considerably lighter than their parents. Apparently hilarity can ensue when both parents are dark and expecting their baby to be too. Not a doctor, but someone in my extended family had a baby. 2 Middle Eastern parents that turned out to be dark-skinned. The father of the baby filed for divorce, even though the mother kept saying the baby was his. A few years later, they found out that the mother's great-grandmother was African, and that the baby obtained strong genes from her. They didn't get back together, because too much had gone down at that point. But the mother was right all along. TLDR. 2 Middle Easterns had dark-skinned baby. Husband divorced, but later it was found out that it was genetics. Kinda the inverse of what you're asking for. My mom has a story about when she gave birth to my sister in Sweden. My family was living there temporarily for my dad's work. My mom's blonde and white. My dad's obviously Japanese, but delivery was a C-section, so his entire head basically was covered for sterilization reasons. My sister came out with a full head of dark hair. The nurse looked very concerned and whispered to my mom, "Hey, your baby's black." Not really used to minorities. Most Swedes in the '90s. Obviously my parents both laughed it off, but it's a fun anecdote. Not a doctor. Fremulan. But a friend of my mom had a black husband. Baby came out white. Ash. She was confused/stressed. But husband was cool, they are supposed to be light at birth. I had a guy who worked for me years ago. He was white. She was a fair-skinned Indian. They had a baby that was so much darker than her, and the tight black curly hair was a giveaway. He insisted it was his, and stayed with her until she ran off with someone else. He wasn't the brightest light on the Christmas tree, and the drugs obviously made it worse. I don't think I've ever wanted to see an AskReddit question answered so badly in my life. Well, since no one is talking, I read an article where the white mother wanted to hide her black baby from the father, and begged the nurses to do so. I can only imagine the storm left behind. If I were in that boat, my spouse would be informed far ahead of the delivery. However, procrastinating is easier.